You're listening to Myers-Briggs Question Corner with Edythe Richards.
Today's question is from Stephen. I have a great administrative assistant who is an ISFP on the Myers-Briggs. What's the best way that I can support her in her work to allow her to excel at her job? Stephen, I truly appreciate your question. The fact that you're asking it says a lot about your integrity as a manager. You can Google great things leaders do to support their employees or some variation of that, and you'll come up with such things as motivating and inspiring them, using their strengths, listening to them, and so on. These are all pretty nebulous, though, and different people prefer to be motivated and inspired in different ways. This is one area where I think the Myers-Briggs can be tremendously helpful. I'll first share a few points about ISFP types, provide tips for giving them feedback, communicating with them, and finally sharing some things you should not do in order to get the best out of your ISFP employee. ISFPs want their work to be much more than a job. They want to contribute to other people's well-being and happiness. They need authenticity, harmony, and flexibility. Though they don't always do well with routine, they will work with steadfast dedication for a cause or person they believe in. And this is extremely important to ISFPs. They will be the most faithful employee if the mission and people is something that's important to them. They are acutely aware of present realities, very realistic and practical, and they're likely to show their care by doing tangible things rather than through words. Overall, they're quiet and unassuming, but they're warm and they tend to be considerate and sensitive. Because of this, they may be taken for granted, but having a boss who values their gifts and flexes to their style will go a long way with an ISFP. When giving feedback to your ISFP, they would prefer to be validated in a personal but quiet way. They may feel embarrassed by public acknowledgments or if they're in the spotlight. Note that because they are introverted feelers, they're likely to take critical feedback personally, even if their expression is neutral to an onlooker. Similarly, they may also find it difficult to offer constructive criticism to others. A good approach when offering critical feedback is to use what I call a sandwich approach. Say something positive, then say the negative, and end with a positive. That way, you're sandwiching the critical feedback between two positives. ISFPs will greatly appreciate you affirming their strengths and being supportive and encouraging to them, and will be more likely to accept constructive criticism if they hear the positive as well. Other communication tips to be aware of when interacting with ISFP types. Make sure that you notice and appreciate all the efforts they do behind the scenes. Because they're not likely to boast about themselves, their gifts and accomplishments may easily go unnoticed. You'll get a lot more out of your ISFP if you take the time to thank them and also get to know what's important to them personally. In this way, you'll establish trust, which will lead to better collaboration and cooperation in the workplace. Next, be sure to set clear expectations, but allow them the freedom to accomplish tasks on their own. Be practical with them and show common sense, providing details when they're available. Relating personal stories and practical information can help ISFPs to understand what's important and prioritize accordingly. Now, some communication don'ts when working with your ISFP. First, don't be overly critical. This will zap the energy and enthusiasm of your ISFP quicker than anything else. This is because personal relationships and a supportive team environment are essential values to an ISFP. And once those values are violated, it will get in the way of the work they do, lead to conflict, and/or cause the ISFP to withdraw. Second, don't assume you know what they need unless you ask them. Third, don't micromanage them or try to exert control over them. ISFPs need freedom, so imposing rigid and highly structured tasks and timelines on them without flexibility is not going to be what allows them to do their best work. Last, try to avoid being overly theoretical or ambiguous. ISFPs are practical people and appreciate practical examples and real-world situations. Above all, ISFPs need a team environment with lots of opportunities and flexibility and friendly people. It's often important for them that their work environment is aesthetically pleasing as well. So this is something, Stephen, you may want to take into account. Like all of us, they want to be doing work that's a great use of their skills and abilities, solves real-world, tangible problems for a mission-driven organization or team. ISFPs aren't people who will ask for a lot. In fact, they probably won't ask for anything. But if you give them a quick acknowledgement of the great work that they're doing, you will be pleasantly surprised at how your ISFP brings it back to you tenfold. Stephen, thank you for the question. For my listeners, I hope this sheds some insight into the ISFP in your life.
Thanks for listening to this episode. If you'd like to hear more, or you'd like to submit a question yourself, then you can find us at www.atopcareer.com. Until next time. MBTI and Myers-Briggs are registered trademarks of the MBTI Trust.